Hello and welcome to this session on off-the-job learning. Our session aims are to establish why exactly do we track off the job and what the benefits of it are. Secondly, we will decide and work out how do we actually fill out our timesheet entries. And thirdly, we will also discuss what kind of activities count as off-the-job learning. So firstly, why do we track off-the-job learning? Off-the-job learning is so important for your employer, ourselves, the training provider, which is Transfer Master Train, and yourself, the apprentice. Essentially, it allows all three parties to have a clear vision of exactly what you have learnt within the workplace and with us, the provider. This story will build up over time during the length of your apprenticeship, and it ends up becoming a really rewarding tool to actually see where you started and where you've come from. So the timesheet entries themselves are not just entries that you will make, predominantly they will be, but they will also be entries from your skills officers as well. And it's fantastic to see, once you sort of really progress into your apprenticeship, everything you have learned and how much time it has taken. And it's incredible to see the amount of learning that takes place. So to sort of surmise, it ensures transparency not only for yourself but for your employer and for us, to make sure that you're getting all the time and support that you need to develop well on your apprenticeship. Secondly, I want to spend some time actually looking at what counts as off-the-job learning, because it can be very, very confusing. This flowchart, which is made available from the government, is a wonderful flowchart because it does ensure clarity. You'll also find it is saved within your resources tab within the off-the-job learning folder, so you can refer to it at any point. And it goes without saying, and even though we would have reiterated this point, but we're always here for you in case you are unsure. Likewise, if you were to input an entry and you'd made a mistake, this is not catastrophic. They can be edited, deleted, and to ensure that you are getting the right information. And we will track this as you progress to make sure that you're understanding what is being asked of you. So the very first point, which is very, very prevalent, and the first thing you should always ask yourself if it counts, is the learning that has taken place directly relevant to the apprenticeship standard or framework? So here at Transplant, we only run standards. That's the modern way that apprenticeships are delivered. So learning throughout the year, which concludes with an endpoint assessment. So for something to actually count as off the job, it has to be relative to the knowledge, skills and behaviours that are part of your apprenticeship standard. So you might ask yourself, how on earth do I know what's part of my apprenticeship standard? I might have an overview and know what the lessons are, but in terms of the nitty gritty, the knowledge, skills and behaviours, how will I find out? So there's two ways that you can clearly see what the knowledge, skills and behaviours are. Firstly, if you click into your profile and click onto your main learning aim, which is your apprenticeship title, you'll notice it's split into three categories: Unit 1, 2 and 3. If you're to click into each, which involves a little bit of going backwards and forwards, but you'll clearly see all the bits of information which we call criteria, which are relative to your development. So to give a simplistic example, if you were studying a business administration apprenticeship and your employer had put you on a first aid course, which was for 3 days, that would be directly relevant to your apprenticeship, because even though it might not be teaching you administrative skills, it is ensuring that you are safe in the workplace. So it is still relative to your role. An example where it wouldn't be relative would be if you were studying let's say a crane apprenticeship, so to operate a crane, and part of that was the training provider supported you to get your car license. That's great because it does help you get to work, but a car license is not a mandatory feature of that endpoint assessment. So yes, you could still document that on your timesheet, but it wouldn't count as off-the-job learning. So just to be clear, you can input as many entries as you like into your timesheet, Some can be off the job, some can be not relevant and off the job. So one clear example would be if you spent X amount of time learning theory towards passing your LGV theory test, which is relevant to your endpoint assessment because you're studying logistics. So that would be relevant. The other way you can check to see your actual apprenticeship standard is within the resources tab. You'll find a folder with the name of your apprenticeship, and inside is a document which comes from the Institute for Apprenticeships, and that also lists every aspect of your apprenticeship standard that you're studying. So that's the first point. Is it fully relevant to my apprenticeship? If it's not, you can still input it, but you'd ensure that you wouldn't tick the off the job box. So the second question, which moves along, it says, is this teaching me new knowledge, skills and behaviours? A sort of classic error, so to speak, is that let's say you've been shadowing someone for 6 days. During those first 4 days, let's say, every day was learning something new, and you felt like you mastered that skill at the end of each day. Those first 4 days would count as off-the-job learning. However, if you got to day 5 and day 6 and it became extremely repetitive and you found the skills very simple to learn, you're now at a stage where you're not actually learning something new. So even though shadowing is a traditional off-the-job activity, if you're not learning something new, it does not count as off-the-job. So that's really, really important to consider. So every time you input something, as well as asking, is it relevant to my standard, you also want to ask yourself, have I learned something new? So thirdly, and really important to remember, and this is reiterated to employers as part of the sign up onto program, but for your awareness as well, learning should always take place during your working hours. You shouldn't be expected to do anything apprenticeship wise that is outside of these hours. If you were to, it would not count as off the job learning. So it has to be within your contracted hours. The fourth point, one that's not relevant for the apprenticeships that we currently deliver, but if you were to learn English and Maths, which was above level 2, so the most of the apprenticeships we deliver are a level 2 and level 3. However, if you were to learn A-level English or A-level Maths, that would count as off the job, which can be slightly confusing at first, but to ensure simplicity, English and Maths that you learn with us will not count as off-the-job learning. So just to be clear, English and Maths is not off-the-job learning. However, when you do go onto your timesheet, we encourage that you document the English and Maths that you've learned. You just ensure that you do not tick the off-the-job box, and that will become transparent of how to do that very soon. So English and Maths is not off the job, but we do like to document it, partly for us, but partly for you as well, so you can actually see how well you've developed. So those first sort of 3-4 questions are things that you should always ask yourself to ensure that you're inputting the correct details and information. A few facts underneath that are worth mentioning. So you'll notice on your one file tracker that we need to get to at least 20%. We have designed all our apprenticeships to aim for 25% off the job. The reason for that extra 5% is to ensure that if aspects are missed, then at least there's a fail-safe to ensure that you are meeting that 20%. And we will guide you and support you as you go, because as you can appreciate, your journey may differ from how we originally planned for many different reasons. It could be from workload to maybe your own well-being. There could be so many different factors as to why your journey might not follow as we planned, but we do have fail-safes and we are here to deal with each situation. Also, off the job, like as we shared, should take place within working hours. This can happen at your workplace. It can also happen here at Transplant and Exeter as well. And thirdly, just to be clear, so progress reviews will take place during your apprenticeship. They do not count as off-the-job learning because they are essentially reflection activities and discussion. So they are not directly developing your knowledge, skills and behaviours. The purpose of this slide is to help you appreciate what different aspects of work that you undertake could actually be used as off-the-job learning. So already we've touched upon the idea of work shadowing, so shadowing a competent team member. However, there are so many different ways that you will achieve your off-the-job learning, which are categorized into these three different categories. So firstly, and the most natural way is through the basics of our curriculum that we've planned. So through our masterclass lessons which you attend, through written challenges where there be research involved, through online learning, through lectures, role playing and simulation. So there'll be group activities during your face-to-face classes as well. So many different ways that will count towards your off-the-job learning. Secondly, in terms of practical training, it can also be things like attending meetings. So if it's relevant to work, which I'd imagine it would be if it's a meeting, then that will count as off the job because it is developing your knowledge of the business and its current affairs. It could be professional networks. It could be events and competitions because they're all relative to your role and to work. Job shadowing, mentoring, many different reasons and ways that you can develop practically in terms of your off the job. And the final column are also traditional methods of gaining off the job hours. So on the back of each masterclass, there will be written challenges and tasks to help confirm your understanding and knowledge. So any research and written time that has gone towards this will count as off-the-job learning as well. And just to clarify, this sheet is also available within your off-the-job resources folder. And of course, you can speak to your designated skills officer at any time just to clarify anything if you are unsure. Now, just to clarify what would have taken place during your one-file induction with a skills officer, it's just to reiterate how exactly we do complete a timesheet entry. So I've given an example here which is okay, but there are some elements for improvement, which is why I thought it would be quite a good example to use. So within your timesheet entry, you'll notice at the top right here, there's a category. And there's a huge list which are the different methods in which your off-the-job learning can take place. So in this example, it was e-learning, and the learner had spent a certain amount of time on a platform called Driving Theory for All, and they learned the different sections within it. So also within that, they've ticked the off-the-job box because this is an off-the-job example, so it's relative to their standard. And just to sort of reiterate that if this wasn't relative to your standard, you would untick that box. The start date, so the day that it started, and the start time and how long it took. So based on the start date and the start time, you might be on a block training course, for example, and it could last 7 days. We would encourage that you do not enter 7 days worth of off the job in one, but instead you are to do 7 separate entries. One of the reasons why, and to help yourselves, is that if you were to put 7 days worth and you had a huge amount of hours here, it'd put a lot of pressure on you to write one humongous timesheet entry. Because the more hours that are there, essentially, the more justification we need of why it's taken so long. So it'd be a lot easier to manage if you do it as daily entries. In terms of how you manage it, we recommend to do it either once a day or once a week, or even to keep a log and then refer it into this. Management of it is important, but we will be there to support you as well. Within the entry itself, so this is totally acceptable, but I wanted to sort of clarify some additional areas we could add for quality. What I like about it is it says the topics that they've learned and the scores that they achieved from mock questioning. That's brilliant because that is fantastic for you to see your journey and also for us to see how well you're doing. But what would really bring it to life is actually discussing what exactly did I learn during the document section, what did I learn during the environment section, what did I learn about leaving the vehicle. This added depth will bring it to life, and it will help make that story transparent as your apprenticeship grows. So that's how you complete a timesheet entry. As a final note, I just wanted to show you exactly where it is tracked so you can see an overall percentage. So on your home page, you'll have access to your profile, which will show up an example like this fictitious one here. Likewise, it will also gain you access to the timesheet button. The bit I've highlighted here with the yellow circle is the off-the-job percentage. So at the start of your apprenticeship, we confirm with your employer your contracted hours throughout the year, and that is inputted into one file. One file works as mathematical magic, and it works out how much we need to ensure that 20% is achieved. And it's nice and easy for everyone to witness and to use, because as you can see there, the off-job percentage is 0.4%. Which would indicate to me that the learner is quite new on program, and that's also coupled up by the evidence that the overall progress is currently at 7%. So we know, employers know, skills officers know that our aim is to ensure that off-the-job percentage by the end of your program is at a minimum of 20%. So this might not grow perfectly, and I wouldn't expect it to grow evenly, because everyone's program is different. You might find that percentage creeps up very quickly early on because of the amount of off the job, and then it starts to slow and steady. And that's quite normal, because let's face it, in your first 6 months in a role, that's more than likely when you're going to learn the most. So your off the job percentage will grow quite quickly early on. And that's all I really want to bring to your attention, is just so you've got that overall percentage there and you can keep an eye on it. So thank you very much for your time and efforts. Hopefully you would have found it beneficial to ensure your clarity. At the end, there is a short quiz just to clarify some of the key points that I've made during the video. And just to finally clarify, like, always remember, we are here if you have any needs or discussions. So we're on the end of the line, end of a one-file message, end of a call. We're always there for you. All right, so thank you for your time today.